So I've been asked about the handprints in the back hallway behind our main stage, and it was something that's kind of born out of just a little bit of anthropology. I really wanted to capture how many people perform on our stage as we got open. So naturally, being the Green Tree City Kirkwood is, I sat down with our muralist and resident artist and said I really wanted to give performers, actors, directors, designers, all of those folks an opportunity to sign their work as we start to acquire more and more performances on the main stage. And what bore out of that was, well, let's paint some trees, and each of our hands become part of that tree. And then as soon as they're dry, we'll just turn around and sign them. Small anecdote: when I was in graduate school, we signed the paint room. Each show that went through the building, through that part of the facility, got an opportunity to sign and date the time that we're in there. And every time I went back to that facility post-graduation, and gosh, that's closing in on 20 years now, I can go back to that paint room and see the time that I was in Scooter Thomas Makes It to the Top of the World, or Antigone. And most of them have been painted over or rewritten over at this point, but I kind of wanted to have something that was a little bit more permanent here. So the Kirkwood Performing Arts Center was born out of a need, an identified need in the city about 15 years ago, as an aging Robert Rhyme theater was starting to be surpassed by most ADA regulations and comfortability for patrons. This project was started in 2015 when the city hired an independent firm to take a look at the feasibility of building a new theater. Out of that theater was born the Performing Arts Center, and that snowball kept kind of progressing, so that once they identified that this was a good idea and what side of the city to put it on, because it allowed for enhancement and expansion of the downtown corridor, it made a lot of sense to the city elders, as well as the end users, as well as the folks in Park and Rec, which we fall under, to kind of build something that was reminiscent and of what they had, but also large enough to scale up to the next level, and that would be attract maybe a pre-Broadway run or a post-Broadway run of a touring company. And that was the idea, that we would build something just large enough to make something like that possible, but still feasible enough to be able to be used for weddings, concerts, anniversaries, a little bit of everything. The flexibility of this space was really what spoke to me as I toured it back in the fall of 2019. And so my end of it was after I got hired, about 85% of the building was already built and designed. And it was my job to finish off the furniture, fixtures, and equipment. And that's been a labor of love. As we've put together, I think, something just as dynamic on stage, and we've matched it as best we can off stage, between our art acquisitions, our sculpture, our furniture, because our furniture is art too, and the centralized feature wall piece in our grand lobby. I think we've not only complemented what we have to offer in terms of facility, but scaled it up to a point where people are really wowed by walking into it. I think we've taken a few breaths away. I was asked about the feature wall in the center of our lobby, because it is so large. It is 25 panels wide, and each panel is 2 feet wide. And then each panel is 9 feet tall, and so there are 3 panels tall. So you've got something, quite wide, 50 feet by 27 feet tall. So it's a huge feature to our facility, and it was a daunting task to take a look at it in its totality, because you can see it from our lower level lobby as well as the upper level lobby, and it gives a different vibe to each part of the facility, especially at night. During the day, you pass by it when the building is shut down, it gives very, very different glow. When I first came onto the project, I got one of those books that says this is what the building's going to look like when the project is done. And I stopped on the page that had the feature wall, and there we go. Maybe we'll get it close like that. I saw the colors and I saw the wall, and even if it was meant as a placeholder or if this was the final design, I didn't think it spoke very well to the magnitude of the rest of the facility. So I challenged our designers to come back to the board and say, okay, guys, what do we really want here? Initially, I wanted an LED wall so that I could have a marquee. I could tell our patrons what was coming next. I could do thank yous to sponsors. It makes sense for a facility of this size. But at the end of the day, I think our city folks at the top who were making the decisions really challenged us to find something that not very many people had, a medium that wasn't often used, and then something that complemented the space without dominating it. And at the end of the day, we found a company out of Iowa called Arctura, and they do perforated aluminum, and ours is backlit by about 30,000 LEDs. It's a giant panel piece of, it's reminiscent of Kirkwood being the Green Tree City. So it's a person standing underneath a blackjack or a pin oak looking up through the foliage at the sky above. And then just because we love things like this, of this nature, we challenged our designers to give us something that has a little bit more symbolism in it. So they built a small arc to it. Kirkwood was built on trains, and it is the train line that bisects Kirkwood. And we happen to be on that train line. Actually, if you stand in our lobby, you can see a train roll by, but you won't hear it. The designers really paid a lot of attention to the train and being around it, but at the same time honoring it in such a way that it represents Kirkwood on a couple of different planes. The one of the best things I like about being at the Performing Arts Center here, Kirkwood Performing Arts Center, KPAC, if you will, has been the longest leash I've ever enjoyed in terms of my career. There have been very few no's along the way. My supervisor, his supervisor, and his supervisor all know what they're doing when it comes to being employees of the city, and they understand the minutia of working within a municipality. I don't. So what I need from them, but then again, they didn't really know what running a performing arts center or theater looked like. So that collaboration has been a true joy and blessing here. Beyond that, they really let me go hog wild when it came to furniture choicing, colors. I took some chances, and I think a few things have worked out really well. Most everything has, but there's a few pieces in the building that I'm awfully darn proud of. And I think it was the opportunity to affect whatever it is we thought might be interesting to our patrons. And if we are half as effective off stage as we are on stage, I'll consider that an absolute win. I think going into this, we didn't have much art on the walls. And so figuring out a way that we could A, hang art, and B, find dynamic stuff, and C, like as just a wish list, was, could we find something that was localized, or could we find any local artists that deserved some highlighting? And the answer to all those questions turned out to be a resounding yes. And we found new life in an area that I didn't know existed, because I'm not from St. Louis, but I'm seeing a lot of really talented folks get a hold of us and say, hey, how do I get on this list? Can we be curated also? And we've had a lot of wins this way. What am I looking forward to? Oh gosh. Getting past the pandemic. It's affected all of us in ways that we never imagined, some worse than others. I'm no different, no better than anybody else who's dealt with it. In the meantime, while we weren't performing to the scale that we were capable of, it really gave us a lot of time to work out a lot of the kinks, make some bolder choices, really think through some of the stuff that we may have thrown a Band-Aid on to begin with. That said, I'm looking forward to having new friends back in the theater. it's been a long time for them too. And even though I'm stepping into this building every day and making a lot of big, bold choices for the patrons, I'm just really looking forward to having patrons back. Come home. We miss you.